So it is April 24th, 2024. I've been having fun doing the Daily Stoic first, and we're going to do that today for this episode of Stand Tall and the Art of War. So let's start over with the Daily Stoic, April 24th. A productive use for contempt. Just as when meat or other foods are set before us, we think, this is a dead fish, a dead bird, or pig, and also, this fine wine is only the juice of a bunch of grapes. This purple-edged robe, just sheep's wool dyed in a bit of blood from a shellfish, or of sex, that it is only rubbing private parts together, followed by a spasmic discharge. In the same way, our impressions grab actual events and permeate them, so we see them as they really are. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 6.13. There is one Stoic exercise that might well be described as contemptuous expressions. Stoics use an almost cynical language as a way to dismantle some of the fanciest or most coveted parts of life. Marcus's joke about sex. Why would he say something like that? Well, if you take a second to consider sex in such an absurd light, you may be less likely to do something shameful or embarrassing in the pursuit of it. It's counterbalanced to the natural bias we have towards something that feels really good. We can apply this same way of thinking to a lot of things that people prize. Consider that envy-inducing photo you see on social media. Imagine the person painstakingly staging it. What about the job promotion that means so much? Look at the lives of other so-called successful people. Still think it holds magical power? Money, which we want more and are reluctant to part with, consider how covered in bacteria and filth it is. That beautiful, perfect person you're admiring from afar, remember that if they're single, other people must have dumped them at some point. There must be something wrong with them. This exercise won't turn you into a cynic, but it will provide some much-needed objectivity. Okay, this counterbalance, this idea of the counterbalance, right? We see this a lot in the Art of War. We see a lot of yin and yang and things like that. And so let's go over to the Art of War and do our different translations and just see what we come up with. So we were in verse 43 talking about iron discipline. 44 out of the Army on the March. If in training soldiers, commands are habitually enforced, the army will be well disciplined. If not, its discipline will be bad. And just in that one sentence, right, separated with a semicolon, we see the counterbalance of well disciplined versus not well disciplined. After talking about iron discipline in verse 43. And so we see that counterbalance. Let's go ahead and round out this chapter. I see that chapter 10 is next, terrain. We only have this one left, verse 45. If a general shows confidence in his men, but always insists on his orders being obeyed, the gain will be mutual. So let's now hop on over to this alternate translation of the Art of War, where the other generals give a little bit of insight. Okay. Master Sun says, when directives are consistently carried out to edify the populace accepts. When directives are not consistently carried out to edify the populace does not accept. When directives are consistently carried out, there is mutual satisfaction between the leadership and the group. So that's a very different translation than the other version. Dumu says, consistent means all along. In ordinary times, it is imperative that benevolence and trustworthiness, along with dignity and order, be manifest to people from the start, so that later, if they are faced with enemies, it is possible to meet the situation in an orderly fashion with the full trust and acceptance of the people. Benevolence and trustworthiness, along with dignity and order, be manifest. So be manifest is just like they need to be evident. People need to be able to know that benevolence, trustworthiness, dignity, and order are there from the start. Because if they're not, when the time comes to actually go play the game, actually go to battle and engage, that's when, if you haven't practiced, then you're not going to succeed. And so that's what the counterbalance is. You can sit here and build yourself up in your mind that you're good at this or you're good at that, but until you've actually done it and you have the actual evidence of seeing yourself do the thing multiple times, many iterations in a row, that's when you know that you can make it happen. And so just being cognizant of that counterbalance that we're learning in the Daily Stoic about, someone who is so wealthy, right? He makes that example about like how hard they had to work to get there, but like that counterbalance. And so as we move forward, let's think about what we're doing in order to counterbalance ourselves in order to move forward.